Chapter 117, Summer 1977, Part 4. The rest of the week in Cornwall passed in complete bliss as far as Remus and Sirius were concerned. They spent long hot days on the beach and hillsides, wandering through quaint little villages, exploring caves and getting tipsy in pub gardens. They dined exclusively on pasties, fish and chips and ice cream, and at night, well, the nights were best of all. During the day, if the others were around, they would toss a ball back and forth across the sand, or Remus would consent to paddle in the sea a little, jeans rolled up and long-sleeved shirt firmly on. If it was just the two of them, then he might roll the sleeves up to his elbows, exposing old scars, and Sirius would become Padfoot and chase Styx or his own tail. And they often got to be alone, because everyone else seemed to want to keep sneaking off. Lily and James were the worst. When they weren't bickering, they were snogging. "You're supposed to be prefects!" Mary yelled at them after the third night, finding them practically horizontal in front of the campfire. "Oh, as if I haven't caught you 100 times on my rounds!" Lily laughed, getting up and straightening her clothes nonetheless. "And you, Black, so you can stop leering." "What?" Sirius blinked innocently. He was carrying back the bowl of washing up from the shower block. Remus had been pretty amazed that Sirius had volunteered to do the dishes every night so far. "I quite like doing it the Muggle way," he had secretly confided. "Mother used to make us do the house elves' work as punishment sometimes, but I just found it relaxing, to be honest." "Don't draw me into your sordid escapades," Sirius was saying prudishly, setting down the tub. "I've been a perfect gentleman all holiday." I'm not convinced you haven't been sneaking off with some Muggle girl in the village," Marlene said. She was lying stretched out on a towel in her underwear, sunbathing. Her body was very long and very pale. "How dare you!" Sirius flicked her with his damp tea towel, making her yell and crease up. "I've been tucked in bed every night. Haven't I, Moony?" Remus choked on the crackers he'd been nibbling on, and had to be slapped on the back by James a few times before he recovered. "You'll pay for that later, Black." He glared at Sirius, eyes watering. Once James had calmed down about the Lily Evans event, as Sirius had been calling it behind his back, enough to think straight, he'd been surprised that Sirius and Remus were now sharing a tent, and suspicious, for all the wrong reasons. "You're not going to start fighting again, you two? You know, you only wind each other up in close proximity." "Right you are, Prongs," Sirius said brightly. "You bunk in with Moony, and I'll share with Evans." That put an end to that line of questioning, but not to James's sudden overprotectiveness of Remus. It was nice, certainly nothing to whinge about, but a bit uncomfortable. Remus had never had any kind of big brother figure, unless you counted Stee or Craig, who had taught him to steal and drink and throw a proper punch. But James now seemed determined to do his clumsy, kind-hearted best. Midway through the week, Remus was a little surprised that no one had so much as mentioned the confession he had made on the first night. Not that he wanted anyone to make a fuss, or say anything sly or backhanded, but still, nothing at all. He brought it up with Sirius in a quiet moment, and he'd laughed. "Well, if Prongs gave everyone else that bloody speech, then I'm not surprised." "Speech?" "Yeah, he pulled me aside and told me if I started treating you any differently, he'd thump me. Probably didn't say that to the girls. Maybe Lily did them." Sirius stretched out doggishly, lying on his front. They were lounging on the beach alone, on a quiet stretch of sand, which so far no one else had discovered. Sirius was in his swimming trunks, and Remus was taking the opportunity to stare at him as much as he liked, and as brazenly as he liked. Every now and then he gathered a handful of silky yellow sand and poured it over Sirius's skin, just to watch the grains slide like water over the muscles on his back. "You're having me on," Remus said lazily, not believing Sirius. "Wish I was. I swear. It was so hard not to laugh in his face and just tell him everything." He rolled over, brushing the sand away carelessly. "I'm going to have to go and wash off in a minute if you keep doing that." "That's the idea." Remus smirked, Sirius in the sea was his new favourite thing to look at. Remus still didn't really believe him, until the very last day of the holiday. They were all trying to pack up the tents, which didn't seem to want to fit back into the bags they'd arrived in, and Remus had ended up taking over, because Peter, Sirius and James didn't seem to understand the concept of instructions. The girls had deconstructed their own camp in less than an hour, and it was getting a bit shameful. Right, that peg needs to come out first. Then there's a sort of top sheet we need to remove, otherwise everything gets tangled, Remus said, scratching his head. James and Sirius did this successfully, and began folding up the brown canvas. "What would we do without you, Mooney?" James chuckled. "Yeah," Peter said from the ground, where he was collecting pegs. "Who'd have thought you'd be good at all this stuff?" "Well, I've always been the sensible one," Remus murmured, not really paying it any mind, skimming the next few steps in the leaflet. Then he realised it had gone quiet, and James was standing over Peter. "What do you mean, this stuff?" Peter looked up, confused, and rubbed his hands together. You know, outdoorsy stuff, blokey stuff. I didn't mean—" "Pete, a word," James said, his voice weirdly hard and flat, channeling Euphemia Potter in a stern mood. He marched off towards the beach, Peter following nervously behind, still wringing his hands. "Blokey stuff," Sirius muttered, though he looked anxious and pale too. "What's all that about?" Remus asked, going over to pick up the pegs Peter had put down. Sirius shook his head, and didn't speak again until Peter and James returned. Peter looked very shaken. Remus wished he could have said something, but he felt like that might only make the problem worse. When it came time to say goodbye, nobody wanted to leave. Remus found himself staring glumly down at the 4 yellow squares of grass where their tents had been, while James and Lily clung to each other saying their goodbyes. "Are you going back to Essex, Remus?" Mary asked cheerfully. "Staying with the Potters for a bit," Remus replied, trying to perk up. "Lucky," Mary said. "I've got to go back to Croydon. Mary invited me to stay, but Mum says she doesn't see enough of me as it is." "That's nice," Remus smiled. "It's nice to be missed." Peter and Dorcas left first, heading up to the main road to find a secluded spot to hail the night bus. Remus waved them off, and everything seemed fine, but that might just have been James's presence. The girls apparated, once Lily finally let go of James, promising to visit before the summer was over, promising to write, and making James promise to telephone. She hugged Remus, and then, perhaps in just a moment of blind happiness, Sirius too. James, Remus and Sirius apparated back to the Potters with somewhat more success than the first time. Remus ended up in the back garden somehow, Sirius somewhere in the village, but Mrs. Potter was thrilled to see them all the same, and decided that they all needed some proper food at once. "Should we get in touch with the Home for you, Remus?" Mr. Potter asked casually over dinner. "You're not pulling another vanishing act, are you? Can't have the Muggle police called again." "Oh, no, Remus stammered over his boiled potatoes. What could he say to stop them asking? What would buy a bit more time? Sirius kicked him underneath the table and gave him a look. "Go on, Mooney," it said. "Tell the truth." Remus looked at Mr. Potter. Actually, now that I'm 17, there isn't a place for me at St. Edmund's." "Oh, good." Mrs. Potter smiled. "We've got you all summer then. Wonderful." As easy as that. "I told you," Sirius whispered as he slid into Remus's bed after midnight. "The Potters love taking in strays." "Should you be here?" Remus whispered back, anxiously. "What about James?" "Snoring his head off. I could hear him through the wall." Remus didn't press it any further. After all, he wanted Sirius there. It felt funny lying alone in a big double bed after a week spent squished up in a tent. Having another body close was comforting. Having Sirius's body close by was even better. "Well done for telling them," Sirius said quietly, holding Remus's hand under the covers. He did that often. Only in bed, in the dark. Remus didn't mind. Yeah, I'm just telling everyone everything this week. Remus laughed. Nothing wrong with asking for help, Mooney. People like helping their friends. I know. Remus kissed the top of Sirius's head, one of the many privileges now permitted to him. Sirius liked to sleep hidden under the covers, like a hibernating creature. It made him seem smaller than he was, and made Remus feel protective. Another thing that was okay to feel now. Sirius? That thing Wormtail said, did it really upset you? He felt Sirius tense against him, and instantly wished he hadn't brought it up. He tried to cover his tracks. Just, you know, Pete, he's a bit of an idiot sometimes. But he's just thick, not spiteful. He'll get used to it. Get used to me. Next time he needs his own work done, it won't matter. I've heard stuff like that before, that's all, Sirius said very low, so that Remus, who usually had perfect hearing, better than perfect, had to listen closely. About being a man. You know the sort of thing. From your mother? Sirius didn't speak, but his head moved slightly, and Remus took it for a nod. We aren't talking about mothers, Remus had to remind himself. He just squeezed Sirius's hand, and said the only thing he could think of. Well then, you know it was all bollocks. Saturday, the 30th of July, 1977. James Potter was not as clever as Remus had given him credit for. They had been back from Cornwall for a fortnight. James had telephoned Lily from the phone box at the end of the road exactly 14 times, and exactly 14 times Remus had to accompany James to the phone box, put the coins in the slot, dial the number for him, and show him how to hang up at the end. The phone calls lasted about an hour usually, leaving Sirius and Remus to sit outside on the brick wall, smoking. Occasionally they walked up and down the high street, but mostly they just waited for James to finish. Bloody idiot, Remus sighed as he exited the booth the 14th time. How hard is it to remember a few simple steps? He did Muggle studies. Don't they explain this stuff? He gets too excited to remember anything, Sirius laughed. Have some sympathy for the lovesick fool. No, I will be joyless and miserable forever, Remus grumbled, fumbling with his cigarette lighter. Oh, I love it when you're all dark and moody. Fuck off. Oh, keep going. Now call me a stupid prat. That really gets me going. Sirius teased, cigarette between his teeth, embers glowing in his eyes. Remus shoved him so that he stumbled off the wall, laughing. You are being a stupid brat. Only for you. Sirius stubbed out his cigarette. There was a low, dark rumbling in the far distance, and Sirius's whole face lit up. He grabbed Remus's arm. Look! Here it comes! Right on time! Remus rolled his eyes. Sirius had another reason to indulge James. Every evening, while they waited for the lovebirds to finish their phone call, a miraculous thing happened, in Sirius's eyes anyway. A motorbike drove through the village, probably some aging hippie on his way home from his boring computer job, Remus thought petulantly. It was a Triumph Bonneville T120. Remus hated that he knew this, but after they'd seen it for the first time, Sirius had dragged them to the newsagents to buy every motorcyclist magazine he could find until they had identified the model. With a cherry-red tank, every inch of chrome polished to a gleaming silver. Sirius was madly in love. Remus was madly jealous. Once the bike had passed, Sirius gave a sigh of satisfaction, then climbed back onto the wall and watched Remus for a while. He did that a lot now. Remus had learnt not to mind too much, being scrutinised. Sirius cocked his head. Is it the moon, making you grumpy? Probably, Remus shrugged. Usually makes me restless. Yeah, I noticed last night. Sirius winked. Oh my god, shut up. Sirius grinned and poked out his sharp pink tongue. Remus was nervous about the moon. It would be his first full moon not spent at either Hogwarts or St. Edmunds, though presumably there had been another full moon, once, long ago, with his mother. Mr. Potter had taken him aside after it was agreed that Remus would be staying for the rest of the summer, and explained their plan of action. Not that it mattered much to Remus. A locked room was a locked room. This time it was the attic, and Moody had offered to stand guard outside, ensuring that the family would be safe. Mr. and Mrs. Potter, not to mention James and Sirius, had repeatedly reassured Remus that they weren't concerned in the slightest, and that he oughtn't to worry either. But of course he did, anyway. Sirius wanted to go in with him, so did James. But James at least had enough common sense to realise it wouldn't be possible. No one was going to get anything past Moody, who had a new creepy eye, electric blue and horribly enchanted. "Tackled werewolves before," he said gruffly, as Remus was led up the ladder to the attic. "Always got a good result, minimal casualties." This did not make Remus feel better, but he wasn't sure if it was supposed to. It was a bad night. Maybe it was Moody's presence. Maybe the wolf didn't like heights. Maybe it could smell its usual playmates, Prongs and Padfoot, and felt lonely. Maybe the wolf just hated Remus. Who knew? Either way, when he woke, he found he'd ripped the room apart, torn at the blinds and scratched the floorboards. In the end, the wolf had chewed on its own paws out of frustration. Hands bleeding, the skin all grazed away, Remus lay in the dark, his heart pounding, waiting for the pain to subside, or for someone to come and help him, whichever came first. Mrs. Potter patched him up and did a good job, but he still struggled to hold his wand for a few days, while the skin grew back. He couldn't hold a broom handle either, so had to just watch while Peter, Sirius and James practiced, like old times. Remus found other ways to occupy himself. He'd got hold of a copy of the telephone book, and spent more time than was probably healthy, looking up every Jenkins in Bristol. There were lots of them, but no hopes. It didn't matter, he tried to tell himself. He'd got on all right for 12 years without her. "Tell me a secret," Sirius would whisper, late at night, every night, when he came to Remus. "Tell me something no one knows." And Remus would tell him, because it made Sirius happy, and that was a very worthwhile pursuit. In fact, Remus was realising, making Sirius happy might be the only thing worth doing for the rest of his life. "I'm the one who told Philomena Pettigrew to go to America." "You never!" "Yep, in the bathroom on Christmas Eve." "Sly bastard. How'd you get girls falling all over each other to talk to you? What's your secret?" "Maybe they trust me because they know I'm not trying to get off with them." "An intriguing thought. Tell me another secret." I dunno. I've told you everything." "Everything that wouldn't hurt you," he added silently. "You haven't," Sirius said, his lips now against Remus's as he crawled on top of him, hands sliding under Remus's nightshirt. He flicked his tongue along Remus's bottom lip. "I'm going to know everything about you one day. I promise." Remus kissed him deeply, believing every word. Chapter 118, Summer 1977, Part 4. Monday the 29th of August, 1977. Remus awoke from his second full moon slightly better off than his last, but unable to move. Moody had bound him to the bed that was kept in the attic just for this purpose, using some kind of advanced magic. It didn't hurt, but it was pretty humiliating, having to lie there and wait to be released without any clothes on. Sirius had been vehemently against the idea, but it didn't hurt, and it was better than the alternative. Remus didn't care how the wolf felt about it. "Made a lot of noise," Moody said as he released him. "But that's to be expected." "What do the others do?" Remus asked, pulling on his jeans quickly, wishing Moody would leave, or at least turn his back. "The werewolves that the Ministry knows about." "Either deals with it at home like this, with an aura checking in, before and after, or they report to the Ministry holding cells. I'll get you a leaflet if you want." "No thanks." Remus had the distinct impression that Moody did not approve of Remus's decision not to register himself. Downstairs, in his normal bedroom, Mrs. Potter had laid out a set of robes on the bed for him. Not uniform robes, but normal everyday ones, the sort that James and Sirius wore out of school. He hoped they were hand-me-downs. He didn't know how he'd ever repay them if they started buying him clothes. "They're for going out in," James explained, when Remus asked about it. "Diagon Alley today." With the first day of school not far off, it had been agreed that the boys would stay in Diagon Alley for the last few days of the summer holiday. Mr. and Mrs. Peter would be leaving for a few weeks, on business for Dumbledore apparently, though neither of them confirmed nor denied this. Even Moody could not argue with Remus going to Diagon Alley this time. "Crawling with auras these days. Undercover. You wouldn't even know it." "And I'm 17, Remus said curtly, "so I'm free to go where I please." "Quite," Euphemia said tiredly. Their Hogwarts letters had arrived only a week ago, and to everyone's surprise, James had been named head boy, as evidenced by the brand new gold pin tucked inside his envelope. "Bloody hell!" James gasped. "What the fuck?" Sirius frowned. "Language," Mrs. Potter scolded them both. She'd been very proud, of course, but James was only interested in telling Lily, and rushed to owl her at once. In less than half an hour, they'd learnt that she had been made head girl. "It's fate," James declared. "Destiny." They used flue powder to get to the Leaky Cauldron, a homely, old-fashioned wizard pub which doubled up as a B&B, meeting place, and a general community centre, as far as Remus could tell. James had booked 2 twin rooms, and after being greeted by the odd-looking hunchback publican, the former orders hauled their school trunks up the stairs to settle in. Remus was sharing with Peter, because neither Remus nor Sirius could come up with an excuse for sharing together. The rooms were adjoining, which was some small comfort, but not much. Diagon Alley was not like Hogsmeade, as Remus had thought it might be. It was more packed in, bustling, noisy, the wizarding equivalent of cosmopolitan. The streets were busy with throngs of students, and every shop was packed to the rafters. Gringotts was the first port of call for everyone. Remus followed James and Sirius around the palatial bank, struck dumb by the complete alienness of everything. Remus had never even been in a Muggle bank before, but nothing could have prepared him for Gringotts, goblins and secret passageways, and mountains of gold. James and Sirius swanned about like VIP members. Mind you, they probably were. The goblins grovelled at their feet, which Remus found hugely distasteful, but couldn't really say anything. He wished Lily was there, or Marlene and Mary, anyone a bit more down to earth. Remus found he had been left just under 400 galleons in the vault which had once belonged to Lyle Lupin. This sounded like an enormous amount to Remus, until he saw the pitying look on Sirius's face. He quietly took out enough for his books and some for new robes, as well as a bit of spending cash to convert to Muggle money. Remus was so shattered after the full moon, and the flue powder, and the bank, that once he'd withdrawn his money, he had to go back to the room at the Leaky Cauldron to collapse. The others promised him they'd leave off shopping until the next day, and would spend the rest of their afternoon looking at brooms and Quidditch supplies. Remus was too tired to care, and crashed out on his little single bed, dead to the world for at least 15 hours. He didn't even wake when the others came clattering in at midnight, smelling strongly of whiskey, loudly shushing each other and giggling. The next day, Lily arrived, and their school shopping began in earnest. She and Remus had similarly methodical minds when it came to completing tasks, and conferred privately on a plan of action, before ordering the other 3 boys about for the rest of the morning. Remus wished he could have more time in Flourish and Blots, but, as they had done books last, being the heaviest items on the list, James, Sirius and Peter were seriously flagging by this point, and on the verge of mutiny if they didn't get some ice cream. So, back to the Leaky Cauldron to dump their goods and to have some lunch. "For God's sake, James, you can't have ice cream before you've had any real food. That's ridiculous." Then, to Florine Fortescue's, where Sirius tried to buy Remus a scoop of every single flavour. "Come on, Moony, it's only fair. You've never tried them before. How will you know which one is your favourite?" Once all of this had been completed, Remus found his energy almost completely depleted once again, and it was only 2 in the afternoon. He considered taking a quick nap, but it was their last night in London, and he had one thing he really needed to do before leaving. It took a little while to get a quiet moment to himself, but in the gents at Florian Fortescue's, Remus took the opportunity to pull out his pocket watch. He clicked it open, the mechanism every bit as satisfying as it had been the first time he used it. He whispered, "Grant Chapman," at the compass half. He expected the arrow to start pointing east, but much to his alarm, it began to spin uncontrollably around, and faster and faster. The compass had not come with instructions, but Remus had a sinking feeling that something he'd known all along was finally being confirmed. Grant was not safe. Grant needed help. Remus hurried back to the little table outside the parlour where his 4 friends were sitting, making a lot of raucous noise over something Peter had just done with his milkshake. "All right, Mooney?" Sirius grinned as Remus hovered nearby. "This lot want to go and do some sightseeing stuff, but it sounds boring. Want to bunk off down Carnaby Street, finally." "Yeah, great," Remus said, forcing a grin. He widened his eyes at Sirius, hoping he got the message. Thankfully, Sirius was very skilled at following secret signals, and came over at once. "What's up?" he whispered. "You look a right state." "I have to go and find Grant," Remus said, agitated. "Look." He showed Sirius the compass's mad spinning. "Right now?" Sirius frowned. "But we were going to—" "Now," Remus said. "I can't explain it. I just have to. I know I have to. Could you tell James and Peter something? I don't know what, just if they ask." "What? No, I'm coming with you." "Sirius." "Remus." Sirius mocked his stern tone and quirked an eyebrow. Remus sighed. This was probably one of those things he was supposed to include Sirius in. He swallowed his temper and relented. "Okay, fine." "Should we just tell the others where we're going?" "No. Don't argue with me on this." He didn't want anyone else knowing about Grant. Sirius, apparently recognising that Remus would only go so far, nodded and didn't push his luck. They told the others they were going to Carnaby Street to look at the shops, paid and hurried away without looking back. They had to go and change into Muggle clothes first, and once they'd left Diagon Alley, they headed for Charing's Cross Station and caught 2 tubes to the squat in Mile End, which Remus thought was probably the best starting point. By the time they got there, it was almost 4 in the afternoon. Remus wasn't sure if it was a year of neglect or just hindsight that made the run-down block of tenements look much less welcome than they had last summer. The smell of damp was stronger. Part of the lintel floor seemed to have been ripped up, exposing dirty, cracked cream tiles. It was a warm day, but it still felt cold inside. Ads, the man Remus had met the year before, was the only one of the original crowd still living there. "Grant?" He scratched his head, looking dazed. "Yeah. Think he went out west, when it got too rough around here. Hammersmith, maybe. Knocking this place down next week." "I'm going to Brixton." "Hammersmith?" Remus said. "That's the other side of town." "Yeah, he made some friends out there, I reckon. Grant's always good at making friends when it suits him." He said that a bit sharply. Remus didn't like it, and automatically made himself taller, squaring his shoulders. Ads looked him up and down irritably and snapped. "Look, if you don't want to be found, he won't be." So, back on the Central Line and across the city they went. As they passed Tottenham Court Road, Remus felt guilty for ruining Sirius's day in Muggle London, and secretly promised to make it up to him when they next had the chance. Still, Sirius was having a surprisingly good time, as enthralled by the escalators and ticket barriers as Remus had been by Gringotts. They changed at Notting Hill, then walked, because Remus didn't have a clue where he was going, except for his nose and the compass, which was spinning less erratically now, and seemed to be trying to lead in a vague direction. "It's amazing," Sirius said, staring up at the houses as they walked, peering into shop windows and stopping to watch double-decker buses shun past. "I've lived in London most of my life, and I've never seen it like this." "Glad you're having fun," Remus said, distracted. They were in Shepherd's Bush now, he was pretty sure. It was past 6 in the evening, and he was slowing down. His hip hurt from rattling about on the underground, his shins were sore from the walking, and his back hurt because of Moody's awful binding spell. "Let's sit down a minute, shall we?" Sirius asked, with a deep look of concern. "Look, there's a park over there." It was Shepherd's Bush Green. At least Remus knew where they were. He consented to rest for only a short while. He was mostly worried that once he'd sat down it would be impossible to get up again. "Well, then I'll carry you," Sirius said. "Piss off, will you?" Remus snorted, resting his elbows on his knees and leaning forward. He pulled out the compass to check it once more. "Oh, it's going mental again," he groaned. "I thought I was getting somewhere." Hi everyone, so it cut off halfway through chapter 118. I'm very sorry. I'm uploading anyway because I think 30 minutes of an upload is better than none, and I will pick up where we left off for tomorrow's upload and do a slightly longer one. And I will recap chapter 118. Thank you everyone for being so supportive as well. It means everything when I see your really nice comments, and I feel like I'm getting to know you guys as well because it's always the same bunch of people who comment, so hi. And I'll see you tomorrow.